Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We're excited to have our next guest back with us today, John Goulait, who's been teaching us so much about our genealogy, our history, and how he's helping you and everyone else looking back into, of course, their past. That's the name of his company. It's lookingback.net. If you visit the website there, you can find out more about his story. He's from Virginia, him and his wife, but they started with their own journey, finding their family history. Now they're helping those worldwide with genealogy everywhere. How are you?
Oh, we're doing fine today, thank you, except it's springtime with pollen in the air now.
I know, I know. I'm waiting for my son to come home with allergies. I'm waiting for the call. It hasn't happened yet. We're in New York, so I think it's coming our way. It's probably warmer there where it is in Virginia right now, where you are. All right, for listeners today, may not be familiar with you and looking back, would you mind just sharing a little bit about what it is?
Well, looking back is primarily we're a research organization, and we primarily will research on genealogy. We will research other things if people have certain things that we can find in our general area of expertise, and there's a lot of it that we can search. So, but genealogy is our main goal, helping people find their history. It's an interesting uh, following to get involved with genealogy. Most people either love it or hate it,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes you get surprises. That's another thing with genealogy. You might find a few black sheep in the factory in the family, and looking back at that, but primarily what we would like to do, and I would like to do, is when you give you an idea of what we do. If you do call us, what we're going to do is probably spend a half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it takes to get an understanding of what you want, what you're looking for. And I'll do this by questioning and you giving me answers. And we should be able to get an idea of that. And when that is done, I will draw up a contract and we will send that to you and have you sign it, and then we'll go at it. That's the best way we can do it. We're like a lawyer or any researcher. We charge by the hour, but the hour can be broken down to minutes because might work on something for 10 minutes and then have to go somewhere else. So we do that. So you get your money's worth. It just might take a little more time than an hour to get it. If you hear an hour, so you think an hour, but we can't cannot work that way because there's other responsibilities as we go along with other jobs. So, but we got to get on it as quick as we can, and again, anything we could get something done in probably a month to 2 months, and some things are going to wait for 6 months to a year. It just depends upon what we're looking for and how much. Of course, you want to know too. I mean, let's face it, you might want to know more than can be found, at least at this present moment. But most of the time, with the world the way it is today, we have connections all over it to a certain extent. Still, a lot of times it's hard because you better have a friend where you're calling sometimes in some of these countries because they actually have to go back into the old church records themselves. They don't have everything, just like we don't have everything on microfilm. We do have a lot on microfilm, but we're getting a lot now that you can find on research on the line on the internet itself. There's a lot of open places. I think I've got about 2,500 places that I can go just in this country looking for things, and it can drive you a little batty.
I'm sure it can. But I mean, through your own research, you've been able to start the process and get others started. And just curious, I don't know if you can share because I guess it's different for everyone, but is there like a price that it starts out at? I mean, because you could never know, it could take a lot longer, but is there any packages that you offer? Any approximation? People might say, well, what does this cost? Can you give me some ideas or a
Well,
sense of for your
I've
services?
I've talked about that and what I have found with other people and what they're doing too. We'll usually start out with offering about a 3 hour package.
Okay.
So that would be about a $50 an hour uh,
Okay.
won $150. And after that, they can decide what they want to do is go further. If we can find more, I can tell them what's going on. Sometimes I could go through that and probably in that time find them at least two or three generations back.
Mm-hmm.
It gets hard, and a lot of it depends upon whether how long they've been in this country as
Yeah.
opposed to where they're
Yeah.
from.
Mm-hmm.
So that all adds up to that too. So that's what keeps you working.
Got
And
it.
so you got to hop around and skip around the plate, so to speak, and find out where you're going to be looking at when you
Mm-hmm.
start, and where that's why we spend the time to question and find out what they do know and what where they can help us with. And the further they can get us back, probably the further I can get them back. It's probably a little bit more history even for some of the people that uh, are he might even know have no one in life.
Right. Oh my gosh. Now I know your area of expertise. Let me just point out, French Canadian, you mentioned, in and around the Great Lakes, you say from pre-New France through today. Also, northern neck and middle peninsula of Virginia. And you do have access to the Library of Virginia, the Library of Congress, National Archives. They can access family history stories in local libraries, historical societies, and local grave sites and help locate them for you as well.
Right.
So just want to point that out. And you can go right to the websites, lookingback.net for more information. But what else sets you apart, John? Tell us some more of your secrets to the trade and how you're helping people. Because it's exciting
Sometimes,
to uncover the past. And
it is.
some people might be devastated. What? I have another sibling? What? You're not my mother? Like like all these
It
things.
happens. It does
Can you
happen.
tell me like a real wow aha moment
Well,
story?
I
Told me
can
a
always
few. Give us some more.
the biggest aha, and I don't know if I mentioned it. I think probably in passing a while back is on my own line. Uh, we have found by things that happened that we didn't know existed.
Mm-hmm.
Something that was out of wedlock, best way to
Wow.
say it, but
Yeah.
a surprise. But it was funny because again, our name, my mother's maiden name was Wenzel, a
Yeah.
German family, and uh, I know most of the people off of it because it's a large family. They had 7 kids, and you get a lot of family names. But all of a sudden, I got a saw on my one of my matches from Ancestry a while back, and it was the name Steinmetz. Well, I get a lot of names, and if I don't know them, I just kind of put them to the side for the minute. But the problem was he came in as a second cousin,
Mm-hmm.
and I said I don't know any Steinmetz. And all of a sudden, what happened was his wife, uh, fella, called me, and I shouldn't have said the name, but we'll just let it go for now. But she called me, and we talked, and we started to look, and I made a few calls within the family, and there was the story of somebody from that time that was born, and all of a sudden, boom, two and two made four. I did that and found, did that with him, and I asked him to let me look at his page and his stuff so that I could study the matches and make sure we're at the right point. And sure enough, he's a second cousin,
Wow.
once removed, I believe
Wow.
it is, but he's there. So I mean, that's just what happens. It's in a lot of families you'll find that. In a lot of families, uh, there are those other surprises that you will find that the man of the house was not your father or the father in the house, and some people that you have to, when it comes to that, and I would find something like that, I I tread easily on it because I want people not to feel too surprised, but
Mm-hmm.
realize that it can happen and does happen uh, both ways. I mean, you might find a child you never thought you had either,
Yeah.
and that all goes on, and it does. If you look, well, I read a lot, I see a lot, and listen to a lot of the stories with the people that are doing what I do. We all pass things along, but
Yeah.
you'll hear a story almost every other day from somebody that somebody found a new child or a new daughter or son or their father or mother. it's unbelievable. Those things are out there. It's not as uncommon as one thinks it is, but it's not that common either. Uh, as I said, we had a lot of problems that you had in Canada and French Canada, especially since they were over here since starting the late 1500s. Is that there weren't a lot of women around, and there was a lot of what you would call married to a cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the church would let them marry second and third cousins at that
Ah,
time.
yeah.
They could get a dispensation from the bishop of the area. So that did happen and was allowed, but it makes a little difference on how you find relationships. I haven't found too much of that in my family, but yet it's there. The old saying for the French Canadians, at least us, that myself, that have been looking at it for a
Yeah.
few years now, is if you're from the earlier times, and mine I trace back to the founding fathers, uh, you're probably related to about three-quarters of French Canada.
Okay. Wow.
Uh, you could find it out if you wanted to hunt hard enough, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have the page big enough to handle it.
Uh-huh.
But it is rather interesting, and I found a new cousin the other day. I will not mention names or too much, but she wrote me regarding uh, one side of my family,
Wow.
which was on my mother's side. And I've got a little block there, and oh, it looked like I got a winner here. So I got in contact with her, and then while I did that, I was doing some looking with what I did know about her and what was on her records that
Mm-hmm.
uh, they had on the one of the sites. And I said, nope, she's related to my Goulait side, my other side.
Wow.
I could figure that out right away. So then I wrote her back and I asked her about her French Canadian relatives because she did say there were French Canadian relatives. And in fact, we're not only related by the Goulait side, but I'm related by the line that I traced down the indigenous to the 1300s or 1600s on. So, that's some strange things you catch in it. It's there, and in yourself you find that accidentally. But I like to keep finding cousins. It is fun to find cousins. So and it's interesting as the Dickens. There's a lot of stories that could be told, but a lot that shan't be told either. That can be rather embarrassing to people, and you have to respect their needs and their wants.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing to it. That's one thing I've always learned on anything I've been involved in. I will respect what you say to the utmost,
Yeah.
uh, and because we all have family secrets we may not want everybody else to know.
Ooh,
As simple as
sounds so
that.
scandalous. It does sound scandalous.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I could be. Granted, most of the times it's not going to be, but anything remains to be seen. If it happened, it will finally be found. That's all.
Yeah. Ah, amazing. And what else do you want to share about looking back? Just reminding everyone, it's lookingback.net. John Goulet's here if you're just tuning in to the Zoomcast or the podcast, and he can help you trace your roots. What other good stories do you have? I mean,
Oh God, you got to think of so many things that you could think about. It's again, you find hints to things. I think I told you the other day, or we talked about. I don't always remember, but about in tracing my own family, I found one of my like fifth great grandmothers. As you get down, you get more people as grandmothers
mm-hmm.
going through because of the way it works. And she traced on her papers down to King John the first
Okay.
Plantagenist in England. And I have her list on that. I've not been able to follow it up, so I'm not going to say I am yet,
Uh-huh.
because one thing that I do say, and I whole wholeheartedly to is that when you say that it's is this, that you can prove that it is this
Yeah.
on paper. You've got to be able to follow the paper all the way back. And in most cases, we at least to try to find three or more records as we can to verify that this is the person we're doing. And what happens, and it happens. One thing I learned that in the early time is because I'd see one and oh that's got to be my Goulait family, and I'd
Hmm.
start looking. No, this can't be. I trace the whole family. I traced one whole family for one of the Goulets. I got a relationship through DNA as a male relation, but I traced his whole family. I gave him his family, but I couldn't find mine at that time
Hmm.
because that's what these brick walls do. And so you have to make sure that you are doing your due justice to the work that you do. People don't realize that it's not a lot of them they go in and they you can look on Ancestry, you can look on a lot of the
Yeah.
uh, ones that you know in there, know find a family and look at it, and you think it's your family, then it looks like
And
it, then all of a
you're like,
sudden
wait a sec.
something's wrong there. And that's what happens is people just find they get stuck. So when they get stuck, they go and the first thing they find is they'll use that and they'll use that. And then it gets caught later on most of the time.
Hmm.
But it's the thing that you've got to do is be sure. And I won't be sure unless I've got the proof to prove it. I'm like the guy in court. I mean, it really is because that's what this is all about too. Because a lot of genealogists do specialize in instances of court relationships and that for wills and for that sort of thing. So it's more than just that. The law still gets into it. We use a lot of look into deeds and land grants and things that people where they might come on, and newspapers, old newspapers are a great find at times, but you can't believe everything you read in them either. That's part of the problem. And
Yeah.
again, there's more than one John Goulait out there. There's
Aw.
only one I know spelling it with the AIT right now, but that's they're still out there. So uh, there's an ET. I met one the other day that lives in Toledo, Ohio, and interesting. And I'm sure somewhere along the line we can find a relationship. Again, the thing that sticks in my mind all the time about relationships is in the Huron language or the Wendat language, they say Mitakoi Oasin, which in translation means we are all related. That's all. If you go back far enough, you're going to be related. It might take 4,000 years, and I don't think we can trace back that far. But that's really the truth because it's all in the DNA when you get down to the whole matter.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it keeps you hunting. It's one of those things. I mean, I was sitting looking over some of the things that I have to can research, and I got a page of I was just looking on one page about 60 different things that I can research just looking in around this country between military and also newspapers because you can get different types of newspapers, different types of
Hmm.
military records. Uh, it just it's just there's a plethora of things out there that a lot of it's going to be is hard to find or it has been lost to the ages, so to speak.
Wow.
So that's what you're living with. So that's what I'm living for. But that's with a genealogist, of the people that are out there and they're doing their own genealogy. There's people that have been doing their own family genealogy for years, but they're so married to it, and it's you get up in the morning and think, well, who am I going to see today?
Yeah.
What can I find? We do what my wife and I used to do a lot of, and we still do quite often is we'll stop at a graveyard and we'll just walk through the
Oh.
graveyard. look at the stones, try to figure out a history of what happened in his family by the stones and the ages, and were they young or old. And around here we've got a lot of old graves, so to speak, because this was a kind of the founding. In fact, our little Tappahannock here, where I live, was founded in 1612. So it's been around a few years. So it graveyards are fun.
Isn't there's a website, excuse my language. It's something like Drop Dead Fred or Dead Fred. Have you heard of it? To help you
I
locate gravestones. Yeah.
there there are those. There's a lot of good ones now too. Find a Grave is one
Uh-huh.
that's out there. Uh, and if you look around on the web, if you're really looking, just look for graves, put down graves and information,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And especially look for cities that you might think you want to know about, because you can find a lot of grave sites and they'll have a list of all their graves too, which is
Oh,
very handy to have.
yeah.
Uh, so it keeps you hunting. Like I say, I go in and out of it, and it's just it's a history in itself. And some of the stones are very interesting with the decals they have in that. And I'm not much into that. I got to keep a book to see what this one means and that one means sometimes. But there are certain meanings to a lot of those, and just a lot of practices with different religions.
Yeah.
So it's a whole new game, and it's a wide open game though. I think it's great
Yeah.
to do that. And like I say, I'm hooked enough that I do the gravestones. My family, I've been back to Michigan to see their graves and all of that. This is where I was originally from,
Mm-hmm.
so I got that. And I go looking just to see if I ever see my name again, or that Goulait name around.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much down here. I have up north in a few places, but that's it's just where it's been and where it's gone. Now, if I go over to the New Orleans area, I know I will find some Goulets because
Mm-hmm.
they're part of that Acadian Creole group down there now. So it's a families that have been around long enough and here long enough. I do have traced relatives to
Okay.
the New Orleans area on our side, so
I mean,
they've been there. Go
do
ahead.
we got to recommend to people they got to start writing this stuff down, their family history, asking those around them, right?
Oh yes, ask your if you got grandparents, ask them, ask your uncles, aunts, older siblings of yourself, and they're
Mm-hmm.
much older, especially because you have some of the two-stage families, as I like to say. You have
Yep.
one kid that we had that was at 5, and then 10 years later you have another kid, or another two or three, and then so there's going to be some family stuff that the younger one, that's the older one now, should know. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, work with anything you can find. If you're bored, look up, if you like to look at things, go to the library and look up the old newspapers on microfiche and go through it. There's just various ways you can find things and have to find things.
Got it.
So it's good to hunt. But
Oh,
when you do it, write it down, put it on paper, and put it where you found it. Put where you found it.
yeah.
That's the big thing. So,
Or keep an email. Keep it in the family. Send an email chain to the young, the old, everyone
right.
too. Keep it
Well,
digital somewhere.
that's what I said. If you're on Facebook, create a family page and get the stories
Yeah.
there. If
Yeah.
you want, create your own podcast, your own uh, um, yeah, your own page on a website,
Yeah.
and use that for a family thing. I've seen a lot of family web pages out there, so they're there. So,
Oh, we got to thank you for always being here, always willing to help someone. Again, families, friends, everyone, listen up. Of all ages, John Goulet and his team can help. Tell us how we can reach you to start looking back at our own history, please.
well, to start looking back, if you want to, you can call me anytime at 804 445-9681.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll either be there, and if I'm not, you get a message and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Otherwise, you can go on our website, lookingback.net, and there's a thing to fill out for information or that, and I'll get in touch with you if you leave me a phone number on that. And otherwise, you can just give me an email at jgoulait, JGOULAIT, at lookingback.net.
Perfect.
So it's an easy way to get there, and I'm glad to welcome you into the
Thank you
fold of
so
the
much.
Looking Back.
Oh, pleasure having you here. Thank you for being with us, always enlightening us and sharing your stories. And folks, please reach out to our friend John, and you have a fantastic day and an even
You
better
do the
week.
same.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.